looks like we're live. We'll give YouTube a moment and see. Hopefully it should be working though. Nice to see you out there. Hopefully everybody is enjoying their day, assuming YouTube gets working. I don't know why it's always faster for other people. I don't know how everyone can get in the video so much faster than I can. But it looks like we are working. So hello, I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video on YouTube. And today we are going to talk about how many words you should learn each and every day, if possible, to speak fluently. All right, nice to see everybody out there. I wanted to cover this topic because it's one of those things that people ask me all the time, and you know, I just want to make a video about it, so I have this and anybody can watch this video anytime, get my complete answer on this. It's actually very simple, so probably this won't be a long video. We'll see how many questions people have. But if you want to know exactly what to do and how to do it, this video will show you. All right, let's begin. All right, so the basic idea, as I normally cover, since we'll probably have new people watching this video, I wanted to make this very quick point at the beginning. The typical way that people are learning languages, what I call just the English as a second language approach. This is how people usually learn. And often the goal of learning English as a second language is to get a large vocabulary as quickly as possible. So we can imagine like each one of these little checks or ticks here is a new word you might learn. So you try to go through and as quickly as possible learn as many words as possible. But often you don't really remember what you're learning, and in conversations you will forget, or maybe you don't know how to pronounce something. Basically, this will create lots of doubt. D-O-U-B-T. I'll just make this a little bit cleaner so you have no doubt about what I'm writing here. But this is really the reason people can know a lot of English, but they still struggle to speak. So they still have doubts that stop them from communicating. So what we do on this channel and what I do with my learners is English as a first language. And the goal is really to focus. And so just to give you the quick picture of what this video is about, the basic idea is that you should learn at least just one new word each day. So it could be one word or one phrase, but I'm going to explain how this is a little bit different, actually really quite different over the long term than trying to learn English the typical way. So when you're learning English as a second language, you might be using translations or trying to get definitions of words, and you're trying to maybe repeat those words again and again to hopefully remember those maybe for a test, but this typically doesn't help you speak. But with learning English as a first language, really I want you to do at least really just one thing each day. And part of the reason, there are going to be just two reasons for this. The first reason is for motivation. If you have a goal and you try to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to learn 10 new words each day, or something really ambitious, so a really big goal like I'm going to learn 100 new words or something like that. If you start having days where you do not accomplish this, you will feel bad about that. And it will hurt your motivation, and you will notice your speaking is probably not influenced much better by learning that way either. But again, the idea about focusing here, the second reason to do that is because it actually helps you speak. And the reason, as you'll see in this video, is because it deletes or destroys or ends the doubt that you have about vocabulary. So as you learn more like a native, you start learning English as a first language, you understand English like a native does, you will start speaking more like a native does. So this is learning like a student, this is learning like a native, and that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, so it should be a pretty short video. You'll see how this works, and then you can apply it as you're learning and getting fluent. But really, I promise you, it might seem like just from this example here, like you're learning less. But the truth is, you're actually learning a lot more, as I'll show you in this video. All right, before I do that, let me see if anybody has any comments or questions. All right, Nils is there. Annette, nice to see you there. Ita, good morning. Rutson, Nils from Wisconsin, yes. Let me know if you're not in Wisconsin. I think you're just in Wisconsin all the time. Game Money says HY, or maybe that's hi. And Coaco, oh no, it's too late in my country. It's never too late. All right, first time to be here, says Fad. Nice to see you there. H-Ray, good morning. I can't read the Cyrillic, but good morning. It's the first time when I caught your stream. Glad to hear it. Remember, if you don't catch the live streams, all of them are available and you can learn with them just the same. It doesn't need to be live in order for you to participate and learn. You know, you can still make comments. Let's see, and then some more. Is that Sevkit? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that. Hello. You can evaluate things identified in a project. What is the function of identified? What is the adjective? That's not the subject of this video, but I would put that in ChatGPT and they will just give you a very simple answer for that. Hello, teacher. I'm Marceliana from Brazil. God bless you. All right, good afternoon. Are you an actor? An actor? No. Good morning, says Shang. What's up, guys? Let's get another incredible class. And Manuel says hello. All right, so let's get started. So if the basic idea is that we want to remove doubt, then we need to focus on something to really understand it. So let me give you, as I often do in these videos, we will talk about situations and how you learn vocabulary from situations. So let's say I have a very strict teacher, like a strict teacher in my class. So strict. So I am not that strict of a teacher. Strict. So to be strict means that you're often telling people to follow the rules, and if they make even a small mistake, you can get very angry, or you might reprimand your students. So to reprimand, meaning to punish or just do something bad to people. So typically this is like a strict teacher or a strict parent. But let's say I'm talking about my friend who is a strict parent or a strict teacher, but I say, you know, actually, they're really a softie. They're really a softie. So if I just put this into a sentence, so he seems, let's just say he seems strict, but he's really a softie. Whoa, where's my eraser? So he seems strict, but he's really a softie. Now, what do you think softie means from the context? I bet you can guess. So when you're learning English as a first language, you might hear it in a conversation or see some other people talking, or maybe you watch a movie or read something, but typically you will learn more by hearing things in context. All right, let's see here. 1 second. All right, just making sure the video is working over here. Let me know in chat if it's working. I think it should be, but hopefully we're okay. Haven't seen anything wrong yet, but pardon me for that. All right, so he seems strict, but he's really a softie. He's really a softie. Now you probably know this part of the word here, soft, soft. And so to call someone a softie, what do you think that means? Just anybody can post that in the chat. Let me see if anybody had a comment about that over there. Lenient, says Game Money. No, not necessarily lenient, but that's a good idea. And so when you get one example of something, you can think about having kind of like a target like this. And you might think like, okay, from this one example, softie means lenient, which is, it's pretty good. Let's just say that's right here. Patient, another example, if I got that correctly, if I'm reading this. Softie or softie is the opposite of strict. A patient, so you mean patient. So patient, that's kind of close, not exactly what we're looking for. But typically kind is more what we're looking for in the middle here. And as you get more examples, like let's say my dad, he's always telling me to do my homework, and he's got all these rules around the house, and sometimes he even gets angry at me. But deep down, he's really a softie, all right? So he's really a nice, so you could say maybe nice, like nice, kind, caring, compassionate, all right? Yeah, so it's basically like nice, and you can think about that like some nice soft sheets or a soft pillow, that same kind of thing. So people will typically have like a or an impression of someone. And so if someone seems like you see like, often people will look at me and they will say, oh, I look like I'm in the military or something just because of my haircut. But maybe you see somebody and he looks very strict, or he looks like he would be a serious person, or maybe even a mean person. Sometimes you see this in movies. There will be like a really big, strong looking guy, but he has a teddy bear collection at his house. So that would be like, he looks one way, but he's really a softie. So he's kind of a kind and caring, emotional person in that way. So very relaxed, very gentle, and actually a softie. So we're kind of contrasting this with, even though someone seems strict, he's really a softie, we're talking about who they are as a person. So when you get one example of something, you understand the word a little bit. You might still have some doubt about how to use it, but as you get more examples, you feel better about the use of it. So I have a couple of just quick sentences. Let's see though. So another example, so even though he seems tough, or in the same way like someone might be strict, you could have tough here. Like a parent might be tough on their child. So the child is trying to learn how to ride a bike and the parent is maybe getting a little bit angry, or they're like, they're yelling at their child, doing something like that, complaining, but really, so the parent is really a softie. Okay, so it's not weak, it's not weakness, it's just kind of a gentle, relaxing, but part of that, just part of their emotional character. So to be a softie. Okay, so as you begin, like most people probably watching this video would know what soft means. But again, we've taken one word, like soft, even something you already know, but just by adding this Y on the end, we change the word, we make it a bit more interesting, and now we reveal kind of the true nature of how learning English as a first language really works. And so what's happening is that we're not learning words. What we're doing, we're really learning different situations where we can apply words. So it might seem like you're only learning one thing, like the word soft, but it's more about now, how can I apply this word? If you're learning like a native, you understand how to apply a word in different situations like this. Okay? So typically when people are learning like the ESL way, they have maybe one word that they learn, and usually it's a translation, and they think maybe there's one way to use it. But when you understand something like a native, you learn, oh, okay, like, this marker is hard, but this bottom of the eraser here, it's pretty soft, okay? But I can also think about a person being soft or gentle, and we can call that person a softie. So someone might seem tough or strict or severe or mean or maybe something like that, but really deep down, and this is another way of expressing this, like to talk about who they really are, we say deep down. So deep down, so who their real personality is. On the outside, they might look serious, maybe they dress with someone has a spiked suit on, so there are lots of spikes or something like that on what they're wearing, but really who they are on the inside, so deep down, yes, so they could be gentle or understanding or a softie, okay? So this is just one example of how this works, where instead of taking a word, maybe you learn the word soft and you learn what that means, we really want to help you understand what soft means by really getting lots of examples, and that's really what's going to build your fluency. So as you understand the word better, you hear new examples, new situations where you can use a word, and that's where you feel, wow, like I actually understand this word very well, and you can own that word like a native. Does that make sense? All right, so even though I'm saying you should learn one thing, if you look at this lesson that we've covered so far, we're looking at a bunch of different words, and even learning phrases like deep down, so where you're talking about someone, who someone really is, all of this is coming from a basic word like soft. But if you spend a little bit of time looking at the word, you will come to understand it better, more like a native, and that will help you use it confidently and fluently. All right, pretty cool, right? So even if we're only looking at one thing rather than trying to learn 10 words or 20 words or 100, it's pretty easy to learn one new word each day, at least. Everybody can do that. Okay? So the point is, again, to try to understand things, we get more examples, we learn things and think, oh, look at that. Like, yes, it does mean soft, like I've got soft skin, or we have a hard whiteboard here, but we can also talk about people being soft in the same way, a softie. All right, let's see if I have anything else. Yes, like generally they're used in this way. Another kind of similar phrase we'll use here is a rough exterior. So someone might have a rough exterior, so the exterior, like the outside, we contrast that with the interior. So someone might have like a rough exterior. So they have, maybe we take a person here, they have some clothes on that has spikes or something like that. So something it looks maybe dangerous or something like that, but actually the person is really a softie. So really, or deep down, so in their heart over here, they're actually a very sweet person. So they might look one way, but they're really a softie. And often when you hear people use this word, softie, they're talking about some kind of surprise they had because they expected one thing and they found out that the person is actually not like that. So they look at the person, wow, the exterior, they have a rough exterior. So maybe they're not smiling, you don't see anything, they're just standing there like this. They look scary, but really, they're actually really on the interior, deep down, they're really a softie. Okay? Is everybody getting the idea here? Let me check chat, make sure people are understanding this so far. I think people are getting it though. Yeah, so like people are, as I'm explaining more, people are getting more on the bullseye of what this means. But he really is a softie, but he is a softie. So he's really a softie, a softie. So we can describe someone as soft or soft and gentle, but we're talking about a person in this way. We say a softie, like he's really a softie. When you hear that, it just means, oh, they're really a gentle and kind person. Okay. So usually nice to people, generally on the inside anyway, even if they look different. All right, Ned says, we moved from Germany to Wisconsin 2.5 years ago. Is that what you mean? No, I know you're already in Wisconsin, but you always say you're in Wisconsin. So I'm wondering if you were going to different places after you moved to the United States. All right, Graz says, hello, teacher, how are you? I'm doing well. Iris says, I would like that one class you can share us many important words for our improvement, please. Well, that's what we do in these lessons. And actually, if you watch many of my videos, you will find many useful words. But the important point about this lesson is if you try to just get a video with a bunch of words in it, but you don't remember those, or you don't really understand what you're learning, you're wasting your time, okay? But if you can pick one thing, at least, and you can see how it would be very easy to go through a few words. Like if I'm teaching you, we can go through many different words. I'm going to give you another example in a moment. But the basic idea here is that for you, especially as an independent learner, if you're learning by yourself, you want to find something that's easy for you to do, that doesn't take a long time, that you can continue to do it. I remember reading a story, I think I shared this with Fluent for Life members a few years ago. But there's a guy who said, like, if I have a plan to leave a rock, like one rock on the side of a bridge as I walk, you know, during my, like, take a walk to work or something like that. So each day my plan is to leave one rock by this bridge. And if I failed to do that, I would feel like really bad about that. And so even though it's like an arbitrary thing, I mean, you decide how many words you want to learn. But it's much better if you can choose at least one thing, which is very easy to do. If you find this is easy for you and you can learn words quickly, then raise that. But start at least with just one thing, okay? So it is possible to learn many words, and we'll do another example in this video. All right, Shang says, I have a question about the word use. When do we use use and when do we use usage? Use would be like, I don't know, rather than go into a whole lesson about use versus usage, that would be something for ChatGPT actually, or Google. Actually on our website, we have a new guide up for usage isn't covered, but it's talking about use versus used to, and like used to doing something like USED, like used to, like I used to do something. But typically usage is like one example of something, like how we might use something, and then use would be the verb where we talk about using a particular thing. So I might use the word soft in this way, but one usage of the word soft is this. So it's explaining the same thing. I could go into more detail about it. I don't have time to do that in this video, but that's the kind of thing you would get from Google pretty easily. So usage is typically like a noun, like a particular example of something. All right, C says, good morning. In my country by the time. Good morning over there. John says, gentle. English words are more interpretation than translating them. Yes, and especially if you're learning them as a native would learn them, you really want to understand them like a native. The whole point is to understand it by just getting lots of good examples rather than trying to translate them. Because translating when you learn will make you translate when you speak. All right. All right, let's see. Deep down in my heart, says John. Yes, the same idea, deep down. So you can say deep down or deep down in my heart. Cam, nice to see you there from Thailand. John says ugly. I don't know what that's referring to. Daniel says hello from Argentina. How about it? Empathy. Yes, you can think of a softie as an empathetic person. So someone who feels well, or as they could be gentle, but again, that's the basic idea. All right, Keiko says, can we say he has brave instead of he is tough? Well, tough and brave aren't necessarily the same thing. They could be similar, but you would say he has bravery. You would say he is brave if that's what you're talking about. But he has he has bravery, or he is brave. You can say both of those things. So you could be tough, but not necessarily brave. So you could be like tough, but still like physically tough, but still scared of things and not want to challenge something because you feel nervous about that. All right, Abdullah says, I really like your teaching style. I have my TOEFL test after 16 days. Please advise me what to do most in this 16 days. So first of all, I would focus on basic grammar because you have basic grammar errors in your writing here. So if you say, I have my TOEFL test after 16 days, I made a video about this before talking about time. Fluent for Life members have more detailed stuff about this. But remember, just because I'll be kind and go over this because it is, you can see I'm a softie, you know. So I want to help people learn. So if we're talking about now, so anytime from this point, you would say it's in 16 days. In 16 days. But if we're talking about from a different point, you would say like 16 days from this date. So in 16 days from here. So you could say like 16 days from now if you want to say that, but you wouldn't say like in like from 16 days. You would have to say, because people will think when, because when you use from, it's always talking about some other point of time that's not now. So from 16 days rather than in 16 days. But when we hear in, we know we're talking about now. We don't need to say the word now. So I would focus on wherever you have doubt, and particularly you would be look at the things where you feel nervous about speaking. So if you have a speaking component to the test, I believe you do. But if it's just writing or whatever, or reading passages and doing multiple choice questions, focus on wherever you have errors. But I would, just looking at the way you write, I would focus on basics. Make sure you have those correct. But also find someone who focuses on a test specifically if you'd like help specifically with like whatever test you're doing. So what I do can be helpful for tests, and my students do well on tests, but it's not because I'm focusing on a test in particular. It's just because I help people understand English like a native so they feel confident using it. All right, Hard to Breathe says, good morning. Sorry for the sidetrack, asking a question about the function of identified. Thanks for guiding to CGBT. It says that it's used as an adjective. I don't remember what question that was about, but glad to hear it. If also like softy itself is that's like, it's you're describing someone, but you're saying a person like is a softy. Kind of like I would describe someone as like, he's nice, but he's a softy. That's how we would use it. All right. Jahangir says, teacher, I love your lessons. Glad to hear it. If you do, click the like button and let other people know about the lessons so we can help them too. Berenice says, teacher, what exercises can we do to have better pronunciation? I would listen to more varied natives talking about things. So just listening to one person like me, you can learn to sound more like me. But if you want to not only improve your pronunciation, but also your listening, you should be getting examples of lots of different speakers, okay? So especially if you need to work with a certain kind of person, like in a certain country or in a certain place, then you need to listen more to that kind of person. And that would be better. The other thing obviously is Frederick, which we have at the link, or you can click on the link in the description below this video for that. And this will help you control kind of the different sounds and compare the different sounds so that you can really feel more confident that you understand the language really well. So the two parts of pronunciation are basically understanding individual sounds. So if we have something like k, at versus a k, at, if I've got that fitting in there. So cat versus cap, or rat. As you compare the different sounds, it's much easier for your brain to hear those. So this is understanding the individual sounds. And then the second part is getting lots of examples of how natives would say things, because the pronunciation can change when people are speaking. So people might think about a word like can. So if I learn this word and say it just by itself, can, you can hear me quite clearly, can, but if I'm speaking quickly, as I'm speaking with a native friend of mine, I might say can. Can you come? Can you come? Can you come? It's like K-I-N or K-U-N, like can. Can you come tomorrow? Can you come tomorrow? Can you come tomorrow? Okay, so that's why we want to do both. We want to be able to understand and to differentiate the different sounds, but also we need to prepare ourselves, our ears, and that will also improve our pronunciation. So your listening and your pronunciation are linked in that way. If you can hear a sound well, you can probably make that sound well also, okay? So this is how you got fluent in your native language and how you improved your pronunciation as well. So you listen to different people in your community or your parents, your family, you heard different people. And as they said different things, you got a nice comparison. Again, here we're comparing individual letters to the height demasiado. See what I said? Or we got, we're gonna compare like different words from different speakers. So one example I often tell people is listen to the same song or the same speech given by different people or sung by different people. So the same thing, but you want to hear it performed by different people. All right, let's see. Elaine says, hello, teacher from Brazil, Nigeria. Murat says, hi, good work this lesson. I'm from Turkey. Good luck. Carlos says, I'd like to learn Japanese someday. Could you give me some advice? Also for advice, it's uncountable, so we just say, give me some advice. We don't say advices. If you'd like to talk about different things, like I have a few things to say, you would say pieces of advice. Now we're getting too many, oh my goodness, too many things on the board over here. I broke my eraser. Let's see if I can fix this very quickly. Boom. Okay, so a piece of advice. So if you can think about like a piece of cake, it's the same thing. Like here's a piece of cake, here's a piece of advice. So here's a piece of advice for you, or you can just say some advice. But we don't say an advice or advices. We don't say that. And that's because advice, you can't count it. You can't count it, okay? So a piece of advice. So as far as learning Japanese goes, it depends on what your goals are. So for me, I want to be able to read, not necessarily write, but I should be able to read quite well. So I need to study the written language as well. But also I spend time learning Japanese with lots of native examples. It's all the same things I do for helping people learn English. So I learn Japanese as a first language. Like as I explained at the beginning of this video, rather than trying to study Japanese through English, I want to get lots of examples of Japanese in Japanese so I can understand and hear, oh, like that word is used in this way. It's like the exact same thing that I do with what I teach here. All right, so think about what your goals are and then get lots of good, understandable input that helps you remove any doubt you have about understanding things. Okay, that's my quick interpretation of that. But if you want to learn like what I talk about for Fluent for Life or on this channel, if you click on the link in the description for Fluent for Life, it's just the first link at the bottom. What I do for teaching people English, that same thing applies for any language. I'm not aware of a program that does it for different languages. If there is one for Japanese, that would be great. I would love to join it. But I have not found any program that teaches Japanese the way I teach English. Like not that they're able to make the language really understandable. There are lots of people who teach it, but people are typically like explaining Japanese through English, which I don't want. Or they're kind of just giving a bunch of grammar rules and not really making the language understandable. All right, so that's what I would look for. So whether you're trying to learn with me or not, that will teach you how to learn any language. It's just, so when I'm learning, like the things that I do in Fluent for Life are what I do for myself as I learn. And it's just easier to do if you have a teacher. So I wish I had a teacher. My own wife won't really teach me if I have questions about stuff. She's just like, nah, I'm busy. I'm not gonna teach you anything right now. But anyway, that's how you do it. All right, so Maria says, hello, I get it, but when my teacher explained in the class, I fell me. What does that mean? I don't know if you're talking about me or somebody else, like in a different class. Abdul says, can you tell me the usual time when you're live? It's usually around this time, Mondays and Thursdays. But actually, it's probably better that I don't give the time because then I would have too many people on these videos and I can't get through all the questions. We've already been going for half an hour and I focused on one word, just giving you one example, but I would like to give you at least one more. Danilo says, hi teacher, I've been learning English during 10 years, but I'm not fluent. Do you have some advice? Typically, it's because you have some kind of doubt that stops you from speaking. And usually that doubt comes from learning English as a second language. So you spend 10 years trying to learn English and you probably know a lot, you can understand what I'm saying, but the reason you can't speak is because you don't know the language as well as you think you do. So you might, for example, know the word soft, but you might not know the word softy. And as you get more examples, you will feel much more confident that you understand the language really like a native, and that's where you start speaking. So I began this video talking about the difference between trying to learn a lot of words, and when people try to learn a lot of words, they usually learn them badly. And that means that they don't actually remember or really understand what they're learning, or they have a very low level of understanding. So I'm trying to give you a higher level of understanding. I'll give you another example of that in just a moment after I get through these comments over here. Okay. And Jose says, it's like lay and lie with as almost the same pronunciation. If you're talking about pronunciation in general, then yes, there are words that can be similar like that, yes. HR says, listening and understanding dialogue from a movie is very tough compared to listening to YouTube like you. Why is that? It's because the language is different. So the real language that natives use in real conversations is different from the way people teach the language in like a lesson like this. So I'm trying to be understandable. I think maybe I'll do like a future video I'll compare how I normally speak versus how I speak in a lesson like this. So for like members of Fluent for Life, we'll get that already, because in that we're looking at like the way people normally learn is we want to, for the first step, we want to make sure you understand something really well, okay? So I should speak clearly, a bit more slowly, make sure you can really understand the word. I write it down. Probably the worst thing I do is my poor handwriting, but at least I try to speak. I know some people maybe are just listening to this rather than watching the video, and I don't like to take a long time. I should do this with a computer. Maybe I'll have a setup like that. But the first thing is just to really understand something. And then we want to get lots and lots and lots of varied examples of that. And so you hear me say something clearly, then when you hear someone else use it, you're prepared for that. And so like in Fluent for Life, the lessons are organized like this. So at first, you're learning a bunch of vocabulary. So it could be grammar or pronunciation with vocabulary like this. But then you hear how natives really use it in a conversation. So you hear how the pronunciation changes a little bit. You hear how people are speaking more, maybe less clearly, or they're mumbling, they're speaking faster. So you're prepared, because this whole thing is what helps you understand it like a native. So if you think about how a parent teaches a child, typically the parent is like maybe a child hears something on television and they turn to their parents and say like, what does that word mean? So they heard something and it wasn't very clear. And then the child says to their parent, what does that mean? And the parent usually will give them like some kind of clear, easy to understand explanation. So now when they hear that thing again, they're prepared for that, okay? So you need both. You need the way I'm speaking now and also me speaking at like a regular pace. And not just me, but like lots of different examples of natives. So whether you learn with me or not, this is the way you should be learning if you want to speak, all right? If you don't care about like having conversations with people or really understanding movies well, maybe you just need to read books or something, that's fine. But I help people who need to actually have communication in their life. So it could be speaking with other people or for their work or social life or family life or something, or whatever the reason is, but they actually need to understand people well and communicate. So that's how you do it. And this is why usually I mention like people get like a lesson on something. If you watch typical YouTube videos about teaching English, you get one lesson about whatever, some vocabulary or grammar point, and that's it. You don't get more about that same thing. You could find more, like you could find 10 different people who talk about something and then get more examples of natives who are talking about that same thing. That would actually help you improve. But just getting one example from a teacher, even from me, it's not going to prepare you perfectly for real communication. That's why, like for what I do on YouTube, it's just me right here. I don't have a bunch of other natives like I do in Fluent for Life. So in that example, we have all of that's already prepared for you to help you understand those things. So if you want to understand movies and communicate better, that's what we do in Fluent for Life. All right. Let's see. Thanks a lot, says Carlos and Murat and Keiko. He is bravery. You would say he is brave. So he has a bravery. So he is tough means he is difficult. Sorry again. No. So again, like tough, again, and this is another thing about the language where one word, you could get a translation. Like let's say I'm learning Japanese and I want to learn the word free. Free. Like, do I mean free as in money, like price, or free like liberty, like I can do what I want? There are different words for this in Japanese, and the same thing in English. So even if we have a word like tough, just trying to get a definition or a translation of that. Like I could be eating something like this marker is pretty tough if I try to chew on it. All right, it's a tough. It's tough. Like you could have a tough steak. All right, so like you go to a steak restaurant. Here's a steak, but it's cooked. It's cooked too well. Like it's really well done. It's a little bit tough. The meat is a little bit tough. So I can also talk about a test being tough, like being difficult. And as you get these different examples of tough, you start to think about the word more like a native, and you understand, oh, and I can understand how it could be tough, like the texture of something, or like the thickness of it, or like how hard it is to chew. Or I could talk about something being difficult. Or I could talk about a person being tough, meaning like they, and even within people, like a teacher could be tough, like they're strict, or a person could be tough, like they're able to fight lots of people and they have lots of energy and strength. Okay, but you see that that's another example of the difference between learning English as a second language, where you just get a word like tough, and then you get a translation of tough, and then you have just one example, and you try to repeat that, and you wonder why people say like, oh, my steak is tough. It's like, what? Your steak is difficult? What do you mean by that? And a native would just understand, like you mean like there's something like difficult about it, and the difficult thing is it's hard to chew. So when we're learning, just to make this idea very clear for people, because this is really important, it's really the idea of this video. If you have a word like tough, and then we get a translation in whatever your language is, so Japanese or French, Chinese, Tibetan, whatever. So you have this in your mind, and if someone uses something different, then you will not be prepared for that. You will be surprised, and you will be, it's like it kind of breaks your world a little bit. But if you remember in your native language, you probably have many uses for particular words, okay? So the native way is more like this. Like you hear an example like the test is tough. So if I just hear that example, the weather is tough, well, we wouldn't really hear, we would hear the weather is rough. Actually, similar thing. But if I hear like the test is tough, so if I take a test and then someone else is asking me, oh, how was the test? I was like, oh, that was a tough test. So what I mean in that example is like the test is a little bit difficult. So here's tough, and we have kind of a general idea of what the word tough means. So the first time I hear something, I think tough means hard, okay? So imagine like this is how a native understands vocabulary over time. So a native gets one example like, oh, the test is tough, and so they think tough means difficult. But then later they hear like the steak is tough. And now wait a minute, like is the steak difficult? What do they mean by that? And like if you get the example, it's like, oh, it's hard to chew. So there's something similar about this. And this is what I call the core meaning of a word like this. And sometimes you could have multiple core meanings, but generally when you're learning vocabulary as a native, you're building a stronger understanding of what this word means as you get different examples. So the test is tough, the person is tough, something else is tough, the situation is tough, the steak is tough. As you get all those, you really feel confident that you understand what something means because you're eliminating the doubt. Okay, does this make sense? So this is very important, and you can see how different this is from the typical English as a second language approach. So if you're trying to learn English as a second language, you have kind of one connection here, and if you hear something different, it will break that connection, and now you will feel bad about that. Okay, you will feel nervous or like, I don't understand what that means. But when you think about it like a native is always getting more data or more input to help them understand words. So what we do in Fluent for Life, or what I do in these videos, is I try to take that process and compress it. So if you think about how a native speaker might learn this, so like a native speaking child, so they're born 0 years old, and let's say they're 10 years old here. So a young child might hear like the word tough, let's say they're, I don't know, 3 years old, and they don't really understand what that means. Like they just hear the word tough. They'll hear the word many different times, okay? So maybe 3 years old, like maybe they're 5 years old, and they hear an example like, oh, the steak is tough. So they hear, oh, it's like it's hard to chew. So the child maybe tries to chew on the steak, and they're saying, oh, like Daddy, I can't chew this. And the parent says, oh, like, is the steak tough? It's too tough for you? It's too tough, okay? So the child learns, oh, okay, like, tough means it's like, yeah, I get the idea here. So they get one example, and then they're in school, and a friend or a teacher says, oh, like, the test is tough. So maybe they're 8 years old, and they hear that example. So you can see how much time is going here. It's like from 3 to 5 to 8. That's a number of years. And they start to understand things as they get more examples of that. So what I try to do is I want to take this and compress it and try to give you a bunch of good examples. This is what I call a fluency trigger, okay? So the point is not to take a word and like study it and memorize it like this. It's to get lots of good examples in a compressed time frame so you really understand something well, okay? So which do you feel better about? Like if I just say the word and give you a definition of it, or if I give you a bunch of examples and you start to think about it more like a native, and now you feel, oh, like I'm getting it. I feel more confident because the doubt goes down, confidence goes up, and that's where you want to start speaking. Okay? So that was a long explanation about that, but it ties in nicely to tie in. If you think about different things coming together to tie in, so it ties in with what we're teaching in this video. Okay? All right. I'll go through the last couple of comments here and then give one more example just to make sure this is very clear for people. Deep down, I'm a softie. You know, I really want to make sure people understand. All right, let's see any final comments here that I missed. Let's see. Stefkit says, there's their word, toughie. That's a good question. That's thinking like a native, very good. But no, we don't talk about like a person being like a toughie rather than a softie. But you will hear people say something like a particular situation, like if I give someone a difficult question, you could say like, oh, that's a hard, or that's a difficult question. I'll just say that's a difficult cue, so I don't have to write out the whole thing. Oh, that's a hard question. Or I could say, oh, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. And you will hear this why used a lot. The same kind of thing, like a person like asks me for something, I say, wow, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. Actually, we would usually do B-I-G-G, biggie, instead of a Y, but it sounds the same. Oh, that's a biggie. You're asking for like a lot. That's a big request. You're asking for a favor. So a friend of mine says, I need to borrow $10,000. I say, whoa, that's a big favor. That's a biggie. Oh, that question, that's a toughie. That's a tough situation. That sounds like a toughie to me. Okay? But good question, good thinking. So as you start thinking more like a native, you will naturally ask these questions. I made a video about like, what did I call that? The 5 laws of thinking in English. And I actually talk about these specific things, about how you start asking more questions about vocabulary. You will naturally do this because your brain is trying to understand the language more. So good question, but this is how we would use it. So we don't typically talk about a person being a toughie, like it was, oh, he's a toughie, but we would talk about a situation being tough in that way. Oh, that's a toughie. That's a tough question, tough situation. Okay, good question. And also, we don't say like smally. we don't use that. We don't say smally. We just say biggie. Because if it's just a normal request, can I borrow $5? I would say, okay, here's $5. But if they say I want like $1 million, say, whoa, that's that's a biggie. That's a toughie. I don't think I can give you $1 million. All right. Let's see. Hello from Nepal. Nice. Your teaching style, says Roshan. It's my pleasure. Tuan says, do we can get examples of words in YouTube? Yep, you certainly can. So it is possible that the things I'm telling you to do as an independent learner, you can. I mean, you can go to like Uglish, as an example, you put in youglish.com and you just type in a word and you can find people using specific vocabulary. It kind of takes a little while to get lots of examples. So if you're doing this by yourself, it is possible to do, but obviously it's much faster. If you want to get fluent faster, a teacher is going to help you do that faster. But you can get examples of that, and not even just individual vocabulary. You can think about topics. So it often can be easier to find topics rather than individual words. So if you want to learn about cooking, like maybe grilling, if you want to learn about grilling, G-R-I-L-L-I-N-G, grilling. So if I'm grilling food, and I want to learn about that, maybe I might hear the phrase tough steak or something. Or if you just Google the phrase tough steak or put that in YouTube, you can probably get some good examples of that as well. Okay. So yes, you can do that. We do all that work for you in Fluent for Life, but if you're just wanting to learn by yourself, you can do that. All right, Creative says, hey, I asked my teacher about a word in English and she didn't know the meaning of it by the way the word was perspicacity. I don't know what that word is either. Perspicacity? I don't know. But I'll tell you something. There are a lot of words I don't know. So yeah, that's a good word. You can look that up, and I'm sure you can stump me with many different words. All right, Jong here says, how can I improve my English in 60 days? 4 sections, I will take an exam, so give me advice. Thanks for your answer. I'm already an intermediate candidate. Again, like the same advice I'm giving everyone else here, which is focus on the particular thing that you need help with, and you'll know that by what you have doubt about. So if you're worried about a grammar point, focus on that. If you're worried about talking about whatever you need for your test, then focus on that. That's how you would do it. Let's see, which books I will read. Could you please recommend me to practice? If you're trying to get fluent quickly, don't sit and read a bunch of books. You need to get lots of examples to help you understand the language. That's the fastest way to do it. If you only read books, you're not going to hear lots of examples of how natives are really communicating. So books are a good way to do it, but it's a slower way to do it. And if you think about how native children get fluent, they're typically not getting fluent by reading books because they speak before they're able to read. All right, and Amir says, I think the better way to learn English is reading a lot about something, like one in English with a Native American, and step by step you will improve. Well, that's a way to improve. Certainly reading will help you, and I read as I improve my Japanese, but I don't recommend that as a way to become a confident speaker. Reading is helpful though. All right, Matt says, the bread is tough. Yes, that could be true. Murat says, I agree. We moved from Kenosha to Pleasant Prairie, not far apart, but still in Wisconsin. All right, Murat says, no study, no gain. Again, like what I'm recommending is not really study. It's the same thing you do in your everyday life as you learn more things. If you think about watching videos on YouTube that are not about learning English, you just probably find some topics that you're interested in and watch more about that. And that's all you would do, just do it in English, and you will improve naturally. So I don't like sit down. The only studying I do really for Japanese is just about learning the writing. It's because I have to do that. I have to actually look at how it is and practice it. So do we say I had a toughy day? No, you would say I had a tough day, a tough day. But you could say, oh, that day was a toughie. Typically though, like toughie is more for like questions and situations rather than a specific day. All right, Lewis says, I'm here just to say thank you. Your video is very helpful. Glad to hear it. Click that like button. All right, let's see, Gray Jewish. I have a nice range of vocabulary. What should I do to improve my oral English? You should focus more on the vocabulary you already know. And maybe you thought I was going to say that already, but yes. So as we gave one example of that with soft, I'll give you another quick example. I'm going to stop just so I make sure this, it's already 54 minutes. But just to give you another example, just more proof that this works, and this is what you should be doing, and that as I'm teaching you should be feeling more confident and fluent because you understand the language better. So even if we take something simple like on, Okay, we can begin with a very simple thing. Again, a native child would learn the word on while they're very young, like 1 year old, 2 years. And you just think like, okay, here's a box and here's something on the box. Like the ball is on the box. Very simple, okay? So a child learns like this spatial usage or this physical usage of physical usage of on. Okay, so they hear, just like we've got our timeline over here. So the child hears probably many times like on, like, oh, you are on the table, or the ball is on the floor, something like that. So they're getting all these examples while they're very young, and they understand this usage of on. But as they get older, they start hearing more uses of that, and without giving like every use of the word on, because there are a lot of them, you might hear somebody say like I'm feeling on today. And so a child hears that, like, I'm feeling on today. Like, what do you mean you're feeling on? Like, you're feeling on, like being like physically on something? And the idea here is like you're feeling positive, like, oh, I feel like I could do a good job. Maybe I'm going to give a presentation, or I have to do a video like this. Like if maybe I'm not feeling so good, like I could be feeling off, you know. Like something doesn't feel quite right. It feels a little bit off. Something is a little bit off about this situation. But if I'm feeling on, it's like ding, like a light. I'm ready, I'm excited, I'm able to do something, I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling on, okay? So he feels on, or he looks on, he looks ready, okay? So you might hear like a later example of like feeling on, or something feels off about this situation. So you feel maybe a little bit nervous, something is not quite right, you don't know exactly what the problem is, but you feel something feels off about this. Like maybe I heard something in an old house, something feels off, or something feels wrong or strange about this situation, okay? So the same basic words, but a native has much more command of the language, okay? A command of the language, ownership of the language. So you know how to use something, and you feel very confident when you read like a good writer and they know how to play with the language well. This is what a native speaker is able to do. But you can do the same thing if you learn that way, all right? So another example, you might hear, what's another good example? Like you might be hearing like, oh, like dinner is on me. Dinner is on me, okay? So if I'm taking a friend of mine to dinner and I say, oh, tonight dinner is on me. That person will understand, oh, okay, like Drew is going to pay for the meal. Dinner is on me. And so what this means is like the responsibility for something is on me. It rests on me, okay? So this is, again, another idea. It's not really like a physical, it's a figurative example of understanding some vocabulary. So this is a physical thing. You could see it, you could touch it. And when you think about dinner is on me, like there's not like physical dinner sitting on top of my head or something. It just means the responsibility is on me. So the responsibility to pay for that thing. So if I give an assignment like that, yes, says Shuan. So falling on someone. So I could put responsibility on someone else. So if I am the boss or a manager and I say, okay, like it's on you to do this thing. It's on you to do that. It's on you, okay? So the responsibility, or just it's on you. So native speakers, I promise you, they're not good speakers because they know more words. They're good speakers because they know how to use their language well. Okay? So, and I know it seems like here we're just taking a look at one word, but it's really not one word because vocabulary is connected. So we have this, we have on, and we have like I'm feeling on today, or I'm feeling off. I'm feeling off today. Something is not quite right. Or, oh, it's on you, the responsibility. So it's on me to get you fluent. That responsibility is on me, not you. It's on me. Dinner is on me tonight. Ooh, lunch is on me. It's on me. Okay? So as you understand the language better, you feel more confident about using it. You will understand it better when you hear it in real conversations, and so you will feel much more confident about speaking. All right? So notice you're not speaking with me in this video. I'm telling you, I'm helping you understand something, and because you understand it, you should feel more confident about understanding it in real life when other people use it, or feeling confident yourself about using these things. Okay? All right, let me go through and answer some last comments over here. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, Jose says, hi, I normally watch you in Brasilia, but today I'm in Tokyo. Best regards. Well, welcome to Nippon. Let's see here. Can't tell if that would look like there's some cherry blossoms or something behind you. These pictures are tiny, I can't really see. All right, Kiko says, I appreciate it, glad to hear it. Hi, it's just start, or you can say it just started. And the big GK guys. Andrew, yes, so it started about 60 minutes ago. All right, Pillar says, your face is similar to Steve Jobs. I guess, maybe, I don't know. I've never heard that before, but that's an interesting thing about people in America. No one has ever told me I look like Steve Jobs. So I have, people have said I look like Mr. Bean. Or, I mean, even maybe with this haircut, yeah, I could see how I look like Forrest Gump, you know, Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump. All right, Abdel says, I'm struggling. So you would say, I'm struggling to remember the English words, even I learn a lot every day. Yes, well, the learning a lot is the problem. So because you learn a lot, you can't remember. Okay, that's the whole subject of this video. So stop learning a lot, try to learn a little, and you will improve and you will remember that vocabulary. All right, morning, Drew. I'm late today. Oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry, you can go back and watch it. Let's see. Perspicacity says the quality of having a ready insight into things, shrewdness. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. All right. So if you're trying to remember that word, now I would get a bunch of examples of it. It is good to look up words if you don't know what they are. I'm not able to do that while I'm doing this video, though. All right. How can I improve my English with a book? Why does everybody want to improve their English with a book? I think, are people asking about that because they would rather improve their English with a book rather than speaking? Is that it? Because you don't have to speak to improve your English. So if you think it's either like, I'm too shy to speak, so I'd rather read a book, if that's the answer, that's not an actual problem. That's like the good news is that you don't have to speak with people to improve. Just like if you're able to improve with my videos and you have never spoken with me, you're improving without actually speaking with anybody. Okay, so don't worry about trying to find books to improve. Books can be helpful, but books are one piece of understanding that can help you become fluent. So you need more than just a particular book. And so, teacher, please tell me which accent is right to speak and learn, British or American? It doesn't matter. It's just, in Fluent for Life, we give you both, plus more than that, Australian English, Canadian English, because you will meet people from all over the world, or you will hear people in different movies or online or whatever. And so, when I'm learning Japanese, I'm not only learning one Japanese, like Osaka Ben or Tokyo or whatever. I'm hearing lots of different examples. So Nagasaki has its own dialect, and it's different from Osaka or other places. But I want to, if I'm traveling around or meeting different people from different parts of Japan, I want to be able to understand those people too. But if you're trying to get a particular accent or something for where you work or where you live, then use that. So if I live in, if I work at a fish market in Tokyo, then I should probably get used to that Japanese. So I don't need to spend time learning a bunch of other things because that's what my life is. And so that's why people develop accents in the first place. So if you're a child living in a community, you will start sounding like the parents or other people in your community. That's how people improve. All right. But if you want to understand more people, then you would broaden that. You should be trying to learn with lots of different people rather than just a particular accent. All right, Nam says, can you recommend ways on how to improve listening skills? So I've already given a bunch of those in this video. All right, your face is also similar to Eminem. Now, if you look at Eminem and Steve Jobs, like they actually look very, very different. But I can see, depending on who you are, like we might look similar. Like I have a joke here. A friend of mine is a barber. He actually cuts my hair, and I have a joke with him that because they'll say like, oh, you look like somebody, and I like like I look like Mr. Bean or whatever, and I say, oh, everybody in Japan looks like Ichiro. and everybody doesn't, but like you become better at seeing these differences when you really look at people. And so now I can actually say, oh, that person looks like this other person over here. But it's much more subtle and more appropriate people you can find usually. All right, he is brave, he has bravery. Correct, you got it, okay. And now you can take that and he is brave, he is smart, he is fun, look at other examples, and that's how you will understand the grammar better. All right, everybody says, hello, my friend, hello, and Johanatan again, what? I like that with the capital letters there. What is the difference between misunderstanding and misunderstood? Well, typically a misunderstanding is like the noun, and like you misunderstood something means that you didn't understand something, or it was not communicated to you well. That's how you would understand that. But again, for little examples like that, you don't need a live teacher to tell you that. Put that in ChatGPT or Google. And I'm not trying to be lazy when I tell you that, but my time is better for helping you if I can help you understand something and remove some doubt that you really can't get quickly or easily from Google or ChatGPT. So if you have an interesting question about why people do something or some other interesting grammar that I can show you how it works and make it easier to understand, that's what I should be doing. All right, Talib says, I tried to read a book, Animal Farm by George Orwell, but I was surprised at how many words I couldn't understand each page of the book. Is that normal? Yes. Well, obviously, Animal Farm is a higher level book, but when I tell people that you should be learning with reading, if you want to read, you should find something that you can understand at least 80 to 90% of the page. So if you look at the page and you don't understand most of the words, then it's going to be more difficult for you to understand, and then you will get frustrated. You will look at I have to look at a dictionary or something every 2 seconds. So find something you can really understand easily. That if you have, let's say we've got 5 words or something, and you know all of these words, and here's the new word, then you think, oh, I can actually understand this new word from these other words. So we call this understanding from context. So rather than just getting a definition of this, you understand this word from the sentence. You understand from or because of the context. So if you have too many words that you don't know, you can't learn that way. So it becomes more frustrating. So I don't learn Japanese by reading a Japanese novel. My reading ability is not at that level yet. And Japanese is a bit more frustrating because you really need to know all of the characters for reading higher level information. But I think the Japanese government or somebody makes they make newspapers and things that are easier for lower level young kids and foreigners. So people who are trying to learn the language, they make it easier for you. But that's one of the tricky things about Japanese, is that you have to learn the whole thing rather than just pieces of it. But with English, if you understand how the pronunciation rules work, at least you can read what the words are. You might not understand them, but at least you can read what those are. Let's see, I think I already answered that already. The word decipher, can you please use it in different contexts? Well, again, the typical examples I give for people, and I don't want to spend time giving lots of examples. This is a good question just about how to learn. But as I gave before, the physical and the figurative. So if I'm looking at, when I'm here, let's in case anybody else doesn't know what decipher means, I will give you this same kind of lesson about understanding that. So if we have a word like decipher, but I have one example where I'm looking at some strange characters on a board like this. I can't decipher what that means. Okay. So here you understand it's like, I don't quite understand something. I can't like take something and translate it into something I understand. So I can't decipher something, okay? So to decipher is like to remove the cipher from that thing. But I could also look at like somebody's face. So if I just make a face like this, like, can you decipher my face? So decipher in this case would mean, can you tell what emotion or how I'm feeling by the way I look? If it's just, can you decipher my mood from my face? So those are physical examples of something like that. So getting like looking at letters or some characters or something. So this is not Japanese or English or whatever. It's just like some letters here, but you can't decipher what that is. You don't know what it means. And you can't decipher my face. If I'm like, yeah, like have a big smile, like, you know, you can decipher that quite easily. But if I'm, I'm making different faces or something like that, maybe it's more difficult to decipher. All right. So you could like anything where we're looking at something, and even the facial example, it's a little bit non-physical. I mean, you're kind of looking at like deciphering someone's emotion. Decipher someone's emotion. Okay, but that's the basic idea. So as you get more examples, you get the understanding of like, ooh, it's like a cracking the code up here. If you look at chat, somebody put the decipher. You'll see it up there. I think. Let me see here. Because you'll hear it like people using both. You'll hear it with like a DI, like DI. And D, like DY. Decipher. Oh, wait a minute. So now I can't spell when I'm writing over here. When I'm trying to read as a D-E-C. Is that correct? Now I'm confusing myself over here. Gotta look at that. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I don't know why I'm like struggling with being able to write this at the same time. But you might hear both of those, or see both of those. Decipher. Anyway, so like the cipher of something, if you're trying to make a cipher is like it's like a code. So we could have something like A, B, C, D, and it's like triangle, 2 lines and 2 lines that way, like that. So I'm making a cipher like that. All right, but yes, like. Sometimes I make spelling errors because I'm like trying to think at the same time while I'm spelling. You can just do a spell checker and get it. But there will be words like this where you get like multiple meanings of it or multiple spellings of it. All right, let's see. Kin Manco, what if I cannot hear the difference when I do minimal pairs training? What training are you using for that? Are you using Frederick for that? You should be using Frederick if you're trying to do that. The best way to do that is like to hear the differences one after the other. So if you can hear like cap and can, usually you can hear the difference between these, like if you look at them or compare them very quickly. Cap, can, cap, can, cap, can. And so this is like what we do in Frederick, so you can actually test your ability to understand these things, and you can look and train your ears that way. But you should be looking at that. And then also, if you can watch people speaking, watch the way like cap versus can, okay? So if you hear, some people will say the can and can't, they sound the same or they sound similar, and usually this happens in a conversation like, I can't go. I can't go, I can't go. But you can hear the T, like the space for the T is there, even though I'm not saying it. I can't go. I can't go. But you can tell by my face, like, no, I can't go. So I'm shaking my head like this. I can't go. I can't go. So if I say, yeah, I can go. I can go, rather than I can't go. So if you listen really carefully, you usually can tell the difference. But Frederick will help you do that if you click on the link in the description below this video. All right. Where did I go? Okay, I love your example, says Elaine. Glad to hear it. Keiko says, it's tough for me to understand core meaning of English. Did I write this correct? Do you write it correctly? Yes. So it's tough for me to understand core meanings in English. It gets easier as you get more examples. That's how you work. That's how you do it. So it's if you only get one word with a definition or translation, you don't really understand the core meaning of something. You have one meaning. To a non-native speaker, it seems like the core meaning, but you will often find that you get many different meanings of words or a much broader use out of that as you get more examples. All right, Ranjit says, Drew, can you organize speaking workshops with 1 or 2 people? There's no reason to do that because you don't need to speak in order to get fluent. It's much faster. Like you can improve faster just by understanding the language better. I don't have speaking workshops with people to learn Japanese. I just listen to people speaking Japanese and I learn different ways of using vocabulary, and that's how I get fluent. It's pretty simple. So I don't take lessons or go to anybody specifically. There's no reason to schedule anything like that. And if I did, it would be like way too expensive for anybody. All right, hello teacher. I have a question. What is the difference between hearing and listening? I'll tell you that very quickly. This is like basically hearing something is something coming into you, but listening is you like kind of going out to kind of catch information. So if I'm watching something, I'm intentionally, like you're listening to me right now because you're trying to do that. It's intentional. You want to do that. But maybe you hear a bird outside or something. It's just something that comes into your ear. Okay. So hearing something versus listening to something. One is, so listening is what you want to do, and hearing is just something that happens automatically. All right. Hello, Drew. Arturo here. I hope you remember me. I think so. Let's see. Are you using a different, because we have a couple of Arturos that come here. Rustlin says, do you have any cheaper course because paying $500 once is too much for me, but I'd like to get some courses from you. Just go to EnglishAnyone.com. You should join that Native Fluency Blueprint. Join the Native Fluency Blueprint. All right, Keiko says, hello, teacher. I'll give it a try. Making lots of examples how to spell this verb. Oh, okay, got that. Danielle says, good evening. I'd like to know if it's better to learn a new word every day or study the synonyms that words I already know. Well, even like there's the third option, which is what I've done today. So taking words you already know and just understanding those words better. Now you could learn synonyms as well. Synonyms are helpful, or phrases that could be used in the same situation. So that's another way to improve your vocabulary, improve your understanding. But yeah, so that's helpful, but think about the vocabulary that you know. That's the foundation. So you want to make the foundation very strong because other things will sit on that foundation. So if you have, like we talked about the word on, if you only know on like this, but you don't know on like that's on me or it's on somebody to do something, then you should spend more time learning this rather than synonyms of the word or something, all right? But the goal, whatever you're learning, is to understand it well, because when you understand it well, you will feel confident about using it. All right, thanks so much, Azarati. I got this. You have great talent to explain knowledge. Glad to hear it. Yes, so I recognize, I know that if you don't understand something, then you won't be able to use it. So it's okay, I'm here to answer questions for you guys. I know what it's like. Augustine, hey Drew, glad to be here again watching your video, but let me tell you that the volume of your audio is low. And greetings, I guess you mean greetings from Nicaragua. You have been my mentor since many years ago. Or you can just say, you have been my mentor for many years. Glad to hear it. Yes, like usually this microphone is fine. It's a stationary mic rather than having like a lav mic, which I've experimented with before, but haven't really liked them very much. But maybe I will try that again. It just depends on where I'm looking, but the volume should be up pretty loud. It's pretty loud for me when I listen back. All right, Tersandro says, I've got a big difficulty with in, on, and at. Could you give me some tips to improve that? Well, you can just look at my channel. You will find lots of videos about prepositions like that. Mahid says, is there any dictionary that can help with learning phrasal verbs, but in the way you give a common verb and you get its meaning and phrasal verb option? Thanks. I would just use ChatGPT for that. So if you're looking for phrasal verbs for a specific preposition or for a specific verb, Google will give you lists of those as well. Whether you understand that list or not, that's a separate issue, but you can find lists of that information. So we have a whole program about that, the Visual Guide to Phrasal Verbs, but so that's included in Fluent for Life. But again, it's not just knowing the vocabulary, it's how well you understand the vocabulary. So if you just get a list of various phrasal verbs, you might not understand them or understand the many different and interesting uses you have of vocabulary. All right, Pillar Chiller says, it always seems difficult to understand idiom light at the end of the tunnel. That's interesting. Why would that be difficult? I mean, typically you have a tunnel. If you imagine a tunnel, like the tunnel is dark and you're coming out on the other side, if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, it means you're almost through that tunnel. So if the tunnel is very long, usually you walk in and the tunnel just looks dark, so you don't know what's in there, you can't see it. But a short tunnel, obviously you don't have that problem. You can see to the other side. But a long tunnel is going to be dark, and so that's the physical idea. Again, we have like the physical idea and the figurative idea of like a tunnel in life, like a difficult situation. So you're going through some difficult situation in your life, that's a problem for you. So you're going through whatever, it's like a tunnel. But thankfully, it looks like we're almost finished with the problem. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so it looks like you're getting close to the other side after going through that difficult thing. All right, it says, my partner's from the US, but she usually can't explain me anything as good as you. Well, yes, I've been doing this a long time. So I'm pretty good at explaining stuff. That's why people join my programs. All right, Nona says, God bless you. Glad to hear it. Again, if you would please bless the like button. Let people know this is entertaining for you and it's helping you. Then we can help more people. All right, Sam Crooks says, my wife failed 4 times in OET listening. Any tips for her? I don't know, how is she learning? Tell her to watch my video. That's the best advice I can give. Like, once you understand how to learn, it's much easier to do it. So improving your listening, vocabulary, pronunciation, all of that. If you understand it like a native, with lots of native examples, you will improve all of your skills. And then the question is, do you want to do it faster with help, or are you gonna do it by yourself? So you can do it, it is possible. Like, that's how I'm doing it now, but I wish I had an actual teacher who knew how to teach like I do. You know, it's kind of like the struggling thing about it. But I know how to create that in English, and that's why I made that for my students. All right, like 108, good job. Let's see. And Keiko says, teacher, it's about time to drink mint water. Yes, I think we're at the end of the lesson because we have reached the end of the comments section. But look at that, I did it again. And here we are with the, look at that, my 2-liter bottle over here with my mint water. Ooh. It's pretty good. I do like some mint water. I like, like some little mint or little pieces of fruit or something. Just a little bit of flavor to my water. Okay, just a last review before we close the video down for today. The basic idea is that rather than learning a bunch of words that you probably won't remember, take one thing and go deep into that. And I promise you, it's not just learning one thing, you're actually learning a bunch of different and interesting and useful words. Because the value of vocabulary is really how you can use it. How many different situations could you apply something rather than just thinking about like the number of words that you know. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So always be learning. If you want to become a confident speaker as quickly as possible, You should be learning English as a first language, and the fastest way to do that is with a teacher like me who can help you. If you would like to do that, click on the link in the description below this video to learn about Fluent for Life. Frederick as well, so we designed that so you can teach yourself all about pronunciation. It will help you with your listening, vocabulary building as well. But again, I'm Drew Badger. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.